We're continuing now on Daf Kuf with the Mishnah on the bottom of the Amud. Now we're talking about a case where a woman fell for Yibum, or if her husband didn't die, her husband divorced her, and she was required to wait a period of 3 months before she would get remarried, but she failed to do so. So she got married, and V'yolda, 7 months later, she gave birth. And since she didn't wait that period between the Misa, or the gerushin of her previous husband, and the marriage to her second husband, Eina Yadua, were left in a suffix whether the Vlad is a ben Tisha l'rishon, which would mean that, let's say, he died 2 months before she got remarried. So there was a 2-month period, and she might have been pregnant when she got married, and she was pregnant from the first husband. The baby now is a 9-month baby who came to full term from the first husband. Or in Ben Shiva La'achra, maybe it's a premature baby that was born 7 months after she conceived. Let's say, to be dramatic, on the first night of her marriage, she conceived. So now we don't know who the father of this child is. Is it the first brother or the second brother? Now, Hayula Banim, she has children, min harishon. So now we're not talking about a Yibum situation necessarily, but Ubanim min hasheni. She has children from both her first husband and her second husband. Okay, now what happens? Cholzin v'lo miyabne. So I have here a diagram in which he has the following. Avram marries Rachel, and they have a child by the name of Reuven. Avram dies, and Rachel, instead of waiting the 3 months that she was required to for Yimei Havchana, as we call it, Niseis Miyad LeYitzchak. She immediately got married to Yitzchak within that 3-month period of time. V'nolad LeRachel Ben. Now she gives birth to a child, and we're going to call that child a suffix. That's his name, so to speak, because we don't know if he's the son of Avram, which would mean he's a ben Tesha, or he's the son of Yitzchak, and he's a ben Shiva. So that's the story with the suffix. Now, v'achar kach, afterwards, Yolda Rachel Yitzchak ben Ushmo Levi. So Rachel has a definite son from Yitzchak by the name of Levi. Now, if the suffix is a ben Tesha l'rishon, that means he's really in truth the son of Avram, then he is the brother of Reuven. Suffix is the brother of Reuven, mina avu mina em, meaning Reuven and the suffix share the same parents, the same Avram and Rachel. Whereas Achiv shel Levi, he is now the suffix, the brother of Levi, because again, they share the same mother Rachel, but rak mina em v'lo mina av. So again, if the suffix is the son of Avram, he does not share the same father as Levi, because Levi is the son of Yitzchak. Now, if the suffix is the son of Yitzchak, then he and Levi are brothers, both mina av uban mina em, because they were both born to Yitzchak and Rachel. Now the suffix marries a woman by the name of Sarah, and he dies without children, and his wife falls for Yibum to his brothers mina av, because Yibum depends upon the paternal brother. But he will not fall for Yibum to his brother from his mother. So Reuven, who's the son of Avram and Sarah, will give chalitza because perhaps the suffix is actually his brother and they share the same father Avram, but he cannot be biyabim her because she, the wife of the suffix Sarah, might be Ashes Achiv Min Ha'em, which is an Isur Karetz. And the same thing is going to apply to Levi. He's going to give her chalitza because it may very well be that the suffix is Levi's brother from the same father Yitzchak, and he falls for him to Levi. But on the other hand, Lo Miyabim Osa, he cannot be Miyabim Sarah, the wife of the suffix, because it could be that the suffix is actually the son of Avram. He was Ben Teshel Rishon, in which case Levi and the suffix are not paternal brothers. They're only maternal brothers because they share the same mother Rachel. So Yibum therefore is out of the question because the suffix erva of Eshes Achiv Min Ha'em. So that's what the Mishnah says, Choltin below Miyabim. And we'll see later about the sequence. V'chein hu lahem. Now the Mishnah reverses the case in which it wasn't the suffix who died, but rather it was Reuven and Levi who died. And lahem, to the brothers, whether it be to Reuven from the first brother, meaning the son of Avram, or whether it be to Levi, who is the son of Yitzchak, Choletz, Lo Miyabim. So let's go through the diagram once more time. It's, again, very, very similar, just instead of the suffix dying, now the two definite brothers die. So Avram, as we said, was married to Rachel, and they had a child, Reuven. Avram died. Rachel failed to wait the 3-month requirement, and she got immediately married to Yitzchak. Rachel has a son who's a suffix. We don't know if he's Ben Tisha li Avram or Ben Sheva li Yitzchak. And afterwards, Yolda Rachel Yitzchak ben Shmo Levi. Nasa Reuven es Sarah. So Reuven now marries a woman by the name of Sarah, and Levi marries a woman by the name of Rivka. Umesu Reuven v'Levi below banim. So that means that Sarah Ashes Reuven falls for Yibum, and Rivka Ashes Levi falls for Yibum. And what do we do in the case of a suffix? The suffix might have to be Miyabim Ashes Reuven if he is the son of Avram. He might have to be Miyabim Ashes Levi Rivka if he's the son of Yitzchak. Therefore, the Mishnah says, Choletz below Miyabim. He'll have to give Chalita to each one of these two ladies, to Sarah and Rivka, because there's a possibility in each case that it might be Ashes Achiv Min Ha'av. But on the other hand, Yibum is excluded because the suffix might be that this is Ashes Achiv Min Ha'em, which is an Isur Karetz. And now we turn to Daf Kuf Amid Beis. Hayu lo, this suffix has Achim Min Harishon v'Achim Min Hasheni Shalome Osa Em. The suffix has there's a Baal Rishon of this woman, and there's a Baal Achron, and there are children from another marriage. So there are children that came in from another marriage. And now it's very possible that in each set of these children coming from different marriages, that this is Achiv Min Ha'av, as far as the suffix is concerned, because he doesn't know who his father is. So he might be sharing a father with the children of Avram. He might be sharing a father with the children of Yitzchak. And in this case, they're not achim mina em because she had a different marriage relationship. Each one had a different marriage relationship. Now, one of them dies without children, and his wife falls for Yibum. What does the suffix do in this case? Who cholets? He will have to give chalitza because perhaps this is his father, meaning that this other son from a different marriage of Avram might be his brother, and therefore he's chayv in Yibum. It's also possible that the child of Yitzchak from a different marriage is the suffix brother, mina av, and requires Yibum or chalitza. So therefore, he must give chalitza to both these ladies. Or alternative, it could be one lady. If let's say, actually, yeah, there's only one lady. Umiyabim. However, he could be miyabim just 1 second. Again, I'm going to go through the diagram here just for a second. Avram marries Rachel, and he marries Leah. He has a child by the name of Reuven from Leah. Yitzchak marries a woman named Chana and has a son named Levi. Avram dies. Rachel did not wait the 3-month requirement, and she got married immediately to Yitzchak. Now, Rachel has a son who's a suffix. We don't know if he's a ben Tesha Avram or ben Shiva Yitzchak. If he is indeed the son of Avram, then he is Achiv Shel Ruvain Mina Av. That means the suffix and Ruvain are both sons of Avram. And he's not related to Levi at all. If, on the other hand, he's the son of Yitzchak, then he's the brother of Levi because both Levi and the suffix are sons of Yitzchak. And he's not related to Reuven at all. Now, Reuven marries Sarah, Levi marries Rivka, and both Reuven and Levi die without children. Their wives fall to the suffix for Yibum, as we don't know whether the suffix is the son of Avram and therefore a brother to Reuven, or he's the son of Yitzchak and a brother to Levi. He has to give chalitza to both of them. Because each one of them might be, in fact, the wife, the widow of his brother Mina'ah. But now, there's another option. He could be miyabem, both Sarah and Rivka. Why? Because mimonefshach. If Sarah is indeed his Yevamot, because she was married to his brother Mina'av, then that's the mitzvah of Yibum, and the same will apply to Rivka. If, on the other hand, Levi, who died, was the son of Yitzchak, and the suffix was the son of Avram, then guess what? They're not related at all. And there's no Isur Yevamot Ashuk. Because there's no Nefila for Yibum. I'll read it inside. It says, Kol achas man muteres lo mimonefshach she'im hu achi baila. If he is in fact the brother of whether it's Reuven, her husband, or Levi, her husband, Reuven in the case of Sarah, and Levi in the case of Rivka, then he's kukalo liyibu. V'im eno achi bala. V'gam ein lebala achim acherim, there are no other brothers. Arei muteres l'shuk. So that's an important point here, that there's no Isur of Yevamot at Shuk. Why? Because there are no other brothers. So on the side that he is the brother, then he has Yibum. On the side that he's not the brother, then she doesn't fall for Yibum to anyone. So that's what the Mishnah says. Miyabim. He could be Miyabim her. With that Mimon of Shuk. Behem. Okay, now we get to a case where the suffix dies. Is Echad Choletz vi Echad Miyabim. One of the brothers, whether it's Ruvain, the son of Avram, or Levi, the son of Yitzchak, will be Choletz to this wife of the suffix, after the suffix dies without children, and his Chaver, who's the son of a different father, can likewise be miyabim her, mimonavshach. If he's achiv and av, it's yibum, and the mitzvah is applicable. If, on the other hand, it's not achiv, then she's nikeres, nachris, she's a nachris. She's completely unrelated to him, and she's mutal shuk since there's no other brother. Fine. Now the Mishnah goes on to a case of a Suffolk Kohen, Suffolk Yisrael. Hoya Echad, one of these two husbands, right? And it's a Suffolk ben Teishel Rishon ben Sheval Yachron. One is Yisrael, and one is a Kohen. So now the Suffolk is a Suffolk Kohen, Suffolk Yisrael, is therefore going to be Machmir on the side that he's a Kohen, and no say Isha Ru'ila Kohen. You can't marry a Grusha, Zona, Chalola, etc. The Eina Metami L'Mesim, a Kohen is enjoyed for being Metami L'Mesim. And V'im Nitma, however, if he, let's say, deliberately was Metami himself to a mess and he went into a cemetery, Eino Sophikus Arbon, we can't give him Malchus because we're not sure whether or not he actually violated the law of Lanefesh Lo Yitam B'Yamo. Maybe he's not a Kohen. Einocha b'truma, you have to be machmer and exclude him from truma. Im ochal eino mishalim keren v'chomesh. But we want to sue him to pay keren v'chomesh for eating the truma as a zar. And let's assume we're talking about a case of shogeg, but maybe he's a kohen. And he has a right to say that I'm allowed to eat truma. We're not going to allow him to eat truma l'chatchila. But to make him pay up for eating truma, he has a right to say, I'm a Kohen. Not that he knows whether he's a Kohen or not, but he could claim so. Furthermore, Eino cholik ala goren. We can't divvy out truma at the threshing floor because maybe he is the son of a Yisrael. Umocher hatruma v'adam shalom. If he's mafresh his own truma, this suffix, he doesn't have to fork over the truma to a Kohen, because he can always say to any Kohen, look, you bring a proof that I'm not a Kohen, and then you'll get the truma. But until you come up with such a proof, I'm not going to give you the truma because I might keep it for myself. But again, he can't eat the truma because maybe he's not a Kohen, he's a Zar. So therefore he sells the truma on the Kohen market, and he pockets the money. When the oros, the hides of Kodshim, were divvied up amongst the Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash, he cannot demand his chelik. The Kohanim have a right to create a cartel, so to speak, against him and say, look, you're not a Kohen, go prove that you're a Kohen. We are proven Kohanim, and therefore we're muchzakim, and you want to be motzim mechavera, all of a riot, go prove that you're a Kohen. We don't give him a bachar or chermei kohanim. If he had his own bachar or hichrim charamim, we cannot force him to fork it over and give it to the kohanim because it remains his. He can say, I'm a kohen. And he doesn't have to give the Kohen the matnos kahuna because he might be a Kohen. Ubechoro, what do we do with his Bechar? After all, the Bechar has what's called Kedushas Rechem Imo, and he's sanctified. Is Yehei Roa Ad Shistayev, the Bechar that's in his flock will be allowed to just simply graze in the open areas until it becomes a Baal Mum. And the law of a Bechar Baal Mum is that it's Nechal Rak LeKohen. So he's a Safek Kohen. Therefore, the din would be that a Bechar should be Yeroy Ad Shiyistai V'yipol Baal Mum. Once it's a Baal Mum, is then Mutal L'Shokol V'lochlo Mimenu Af L'Zorin. Even a non-Kohen would be allowed to eat the basar. So in this case of the Bechar that was born in the flock of the Safek Kohen, Safek Yisrael, there's no way that we can allow him to bring this as a korban and then eat the meat because maybe he's not a Kohen at all. And therefore, we have the following solution. We're going to let the Bechar graze in the open area, becomes a Baal Mum, and after it's a Baal Mum, you're allowed to shecht it, and even a Zar is allowed to eat its meat. of Chumrei Kohanim and Chumrei Yisraelim. So this was the discussion that I told you about at the end of Daf Kuf Amud Aleph regarding a mincha, korban mincha, and basically the sum bottom line of that entire sugya is that when this Safek Kohen, Safek Yisrael would bring a korban mincha, on the one hand, he would have to fulfill the mitzvah of kmitza. I mean, the Kohen would do the kmitza on the tzad that he's Yisrael. On the other hand, what happens to the shirayim? Normally, the shirayim of a korban mincha are eaten by zichrei kahuna. But there's a problem with that because he might be a Kohen, and Minchas Kohen is kuloi kolil. It has to be completely burnt on the Mizbeach. So we're going to add the chumras of both. We're going to do the kmitza, and that's okay even if he's a Kohen because the kmitza is going to be niktar al gabi Mizbeach, and will be Makayim the mitzvah of kolil on the tzad that he's a Kohen by not allowing anyone to eat the shirayim, and we'll know what to do with the shirayim. And we'll create a kind of haktorah, b'toras eitzim. Next. Hayu shneim Kohen. Both her first and her last husband are Kohen. So Mimonashach, he's a Kohen. Who onein aleim? Onein means that he's not allowed to eat kodshim. That's the law. And regarding each one of them, maybe this is his father. And therefore he might be known and he's enjoyed from eating kodshim. Heim onenim olav. They also have to be knowing the din of aninus, and they're also bachilas kodshim. Maybe this is his son. So again, that's all the chumrah to aser eating kodshim. Another chumrah who eino mitami lehem. If they die, well, guess what? You don't know which Kohen is your father, so it might be your father, it might not be. But either way, he can't be mitami lemes because he's definitely a Kohen. Who ain't a Yosh Osam. Each one of these two fathers have children who are the Yorshim. They have a chazak on the Yerusha, and they'll always push aside this suffix and say to him, you know what? You prove that you're the son of this deceased, and then we'll negotiate. But until you prove so, Hamotzi Mechaver, Olav Araya. Avalheim Yorshim also, which means again, Momen Amutab Safik Kolkin, and we don't know which of the two are his father, are his relatives. And therefore, they'll divvy up the Yerusha 50-50. Upata Makas. If this suffix hits one of these two fathers, then normally he'd be Chayv Misa. We can't give Misa because maybe that's not his father. Again, the truth is that this whole sugi that we're learning now has nothing to do with two Kohanim. I mean, generally speaking, let's say, you don't know whether he's a Ben Teisha to this one, who's Yisrael, or a Ben Shiva to this one, who's Yisrael. Patal Makasa. The Al-Kilalasa, Shalzeh, Shalzeh. It's a suffix. We can't put a person to death until we're certain that he deserves to be killed. He violated that criminal. Ole b'mishmaro Shalzeh v'Shalzeh. There are two possible on-duty Kohanim in this case, and it all depends who his father is, because the division of Mishmaros, the 24 Mishmaros, is Al-Pi the father. So in this case, he has a right to nudge his way into each one of these two Mishmaros. The Gemara is going to ask why. But basically, the Bnei HaMishmar are not able to be ma'akiv. They can't stop him because he'll always say, prove that I'm not the son of this particular Kohen who's on Mishmeretz. The Eno Cholik, but he doesn't get any share in the Oros HaKodshim because the Bnei Mishmar will always push him to the other Bnei Mishmar, vice versa, like a ping pong. V'im hayu shneim b'mishmar echad. Let's say both the first father and the second father belong to the same Mishmeres Kahuna. So then Mimonashach, this son, has rights to join up to this Mishmeres. Is b'mishmar echad, no tel chelik echad. He can get one chelik and Mimonashach, it belongs to him. Now we see the Gemara. We learned in the Mishnah that if you have a suffix and you don't know whether he's a brother to those children from the Rishon or a brother to those children from the Achron, if he's a Ben Teisha or a Ben Shiva, etc., and if the suffix dies without children, then one of the brothers is Choletz and the other is Miyabim. So Gemara is Medaik now in the sequence. Dafka michlit fahadu yibume. You have to make sure the chalitza comes first, and then his chaver, so to speak, could be miyabim. Aval yibume b'reisha lo, but you can't switch around the order and start with yibum, because at this point there's a suffix whether he's the ben of the rishon or the ben of the sheni, and we don't know if the wife of the deceased has a zikas yibum to the achei mes, which are the sheni. So if there was no chalitza, then nimta, it comes out to go paga be Yevamot shuk. Right? If he's miyabem, the son of the Rishon, and in fact he's the son of the Achron, then he's being pogeh b'Yevamot shuk. Omar Shmuel Asara Konim Omdu Pirish Echad B'Yabu Baal Havlad Shtuki. Now the word Shtuki means a suffix in Yuchsin. We don't know if it's a guy or a Yisrael, and he's excluded from Kal Yisrael. Here we know he's a Kohen. There were 10 Kohanim who had Bia, one after the other. And we don't know if the child is the child of any of these 10 Kohanim. So what does it mean, Shtuki? My shtuki, if we're going to say that he doesn't inherit his father, well, that's pasha because there are 10 possible fathers here. So which one of the 10 are you going to choose for the Yerusha? Is Pshita mi'adin avur de manu? Who is his father? The Gemara doesn't even bother rejecting the possibility that there's a shtuki mikal Yisrael because we know that his father was Jewish. Ella, what does it mean? Shtuki shemeshaskin osa midin kahuna. He's puzzled. The avod, he doesn't eat the truma. And even though we know that his father's a Kohen, so he should be able to do the avoda and eat truma. My timer, what's the reason why he's puzzled for the avoda? Even though he's definitely a Kohen. And the answer is because the Omar Krut says in the pasuk, this pasuk is related to the Kuhuna of Pinchas, and it says Lazaro Achara, that the bris of Kuhuna is a definite Zaro Achra. Be'inan Zaro Miyuchas Achra. We have to know exactly who his father is. So the Kohen has to be Miyuchas to his father. And in the case of a Shtuki Leka, we don't know who his father is. And therefore he's puzzled from Avot. Maskifler of Papa. But Papa is going to now object to the drush of Shmuel, who derives from the pasuk Lazaro Achra Velabeato Gabi Avram Tsiv Lios Lachal Elohim Ulazarachach Recha. It also says Zarecha Achrecha and Hasamaiko Mazule Rachmana. What is Hashem warning Avram about when he says Lazarach Achrecha? What psul is possible in the Zaro Shel Avram, Sheinam Kohen, if not for the fact that the son will be Miyuchas Achra? More answers. Chachi Kamar Lord. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Avram. Lo tinsav ovedes kochavim v'shivcha de lo lezel zarach basra. So again, you're right. There's no talk about Zera Avram being possible for Kahuna because there is no Kahuna with the Zera Shel Avram. But rather, what Hashem was saying to Avram was that be careful not to marry a Goyet or a Shivcha, because then the children will not be miyuchas to you, but rather to her. And in fact, a Yisrael that marries a Nachris or a Shivcha, the Vlad is Kimosa. Meisvei, the Gemara raises another objection to the sheet of Shmuel from the Bryce that we learned earlier. A man was Miyabem, Ashes Achiv, within the 3-month period of time after his brother died, and she gave birth to 7. Just 1 second. So she gave birth 7 months after the Yibum, and the ben of that consummated marriage is a suffix whether he's ben Tisha l'Rishon or ben Shivaliach. Harishon Roy Lios Kohen Gadol. The one that we know is a Kohen can serve as a Kohen Gadol because we might have Shach he's kosher. If he's the ben of the Rishon, he's kosher, and if he's the ben of the Achron, he's kosher. So this is against Shmuel. Vabeina and Zaram Yuchas Achrav. Shmuel says we have to know exactly who his father is. So how can he possibly serve as the Kohen Gadol? Leka, we don't know who his father is. The Gemara answers, Zara miyuchas akrav derabana. The entire enterprise of Shmuel's ruling is only a derabana. Ukras machtabi almu. So the Rabbana were the ones who instituted this gzeira that a Kohen, and we don't know exactly who his father is going to be excluded from avoda and from truma. Biznus, I will be nesuin lo gazra. So when you had the 10 people that were lined up, and the Kohanim, were there, and one, let's say, was Baal, the Pnuya, and the Vlad is a Shtuki as far as Kahuna, says Shmuel. That's because this was a Mises Nus. However, in a case of Nesuin, like for example, our case, where the Yibum took place within 3 months, and there was no Znus over here, is lo gozer Rabbanan. The Rabbanan are not going to institute this Gzeir to apostle the son of a Kohen from Kahun, even though we don't know exactly who his father is. Maybe a Ben Teshel Rishon or a Ben Shibel Yachron, and he's Roy Leos Kohen Gadol. The Gemara Biznus mi gozer Rabbanan v'Tanan mi shelo shasa achar baila shlosha chadosh v'niseis v'yoldo. And they were both Kohanim. And he's an onen for them, and they're onen for him. He's not mitami, and they're not mitami him. So the Gemara first, let's clarify what's the case over here. My achar baila. What does it mean she got married after her first husband? Ilem, if we're going to say that she got married achar bisas baila, and that's when the suffix was born, that's impossible because a Masechet. Look at the Seifa. It says that both of them are Kohanim who own in Aleim v'hem onin Allah. Bishlema who own in Aleim. I can understand why this suffix is an onin Aleim on the Bala Rishon and the Sheni Shal Imo, and he won't be able to do the Avodah Mishkachas La. You can find such an aninus of both of them. Binisuin the Sheni the Likud Atzavos the Kama. If the second husband who married his mother, that's called Nesuin Sheni. And then we have Likud Atzavos. They malakit the Atzavos of the Rishon, a number of years after he died, and they wanted to transfer him over to a different kever, to a different burial place. And the din is that on that day of Likud Atzavos, we have Niug Aninus, all the Krov Machayev to be Noig Aninus, and they're enjoyed from eating kachim, and that what the Mishnah means who own in Aleah, that even though the suffix was born after the death of the first father, potential father, who own in Allah biyom shaliktu es atzamos. And as far as the Sheni is concerned, he's noeg aninus biyom Sheni. Elohim, but in the case of the Balarishan and the Balasheni, owning him olav, heichim mishkachasla, kama hamisle. The first Baal died before the later of the bed. It's only after his death that his mother got married to the Shady and the suffix was born. So that's an impossible interpretation of that mission. Ella, by process of elimination, begrusha, that she got to get from the first husband, and then she married within 3 months a second husband, and then the suffix was born. Umay, and what does the Mishnah mean? Achar get baila. She didn't wait the 3 months after she received the get from her husband. And now we understand that onein hein ala rishon shemes achar shegirsha vehein ala sheni shenosas imo. The Gemara rejects this as well. Ema Seifa. What are we going to do with the Mishnah in the Seifa? If, let's say, both of them are Kohanim, who ain't mitami lahem, vehem ain't mitami lo bitchlei mahen. I understand why the Baal Rishon Baal Sheni is ain't mitami lo. They can't be mitami to the suffix when the suffix dies, and that's because holchem lechumra. To call echad the chad v'chad dilma la brehu. Each one is a suffix in the vlad, whether it's his son or not. So therefore, he can't be mitami. I don't know if this is my son. Elahu, but what does it mean that the suffix himself is not mitami lahem, meaning to neither to Baal Rishon to Baal Sheni Amai? Why isn't he not mitami to both of them? He's not allowed to be mitami to the Sheni because maybe the ben, maybe he is the ben of the Rishon, and he's a Kohen kosher, and he's not allowed to be mitami lemes. Ela l'rishon l'tami le. Why shouldn't he be mitami to the rishon? Mimonefsha. Ibrehu shaper kamitami. Ve'ibar basrahu. And even an event that he's the son of the Sheni, who is married to this grusha be'isur, because again we're talking about a Kohen, he's not allowed to marry a grusha, is shaper kamitami la dechololhu. Tov she'oseh she'nitma l'rishon she'na aviv kaven dechololhu. This suffix is a cholol because he was married to a divorcee and he becomes a cholol. If that be the case, he's not included in the Isur Shalol L'Tami Lemes. Elalav, says Gemara, we only have by cross-explanation the following possible interpretation of the Mishnah. Biznus. Right, that there were two Kohanim that came on a Pruya Biznus without Kedusha. And after the first one had this Be'ila relationship, then the Sheni had such a relationship and she gave birth to a son. We don't know who the father is. Umay achar bala, achar boala. So when the Mishnah says that she lo shasa, and it says literally achar baila, we're not going to interpret it as achar baila, literally, because he was bala biznus. El achar bala, the bal rishon biznus. So the Gemara says, I don't get it. Ktani Seifa, it says in the Seifa of the Mishnah about the suffix of biaznus that Olo Mishmar shall zeh v'shal zeh. He could do the avodah of the Mishmar of either the first or the second. So even though he's a suffix, we don't know who his father is, but nevertheless he could do the avodah. He could even throw himself into the Mishmar. Again, we don't know which is his father because both had a relationship of znus outside of the wedlock, the matched wedlock, and the Rabbanan did not make a gzeira that they shouldn't work, they shouldn't serve. Is tiyuvta de Shmuel sha'omar shebiznus gazru chachamim shelo yavo. So now we have a tiyuvta de Shmuel, because here we see that he can impose himself on the mishpar. He does the avodah. Shmuel says in the case of znus, the Rabbanan made a gzeira and they won't let him do the avodah. Omer Rav Shmaya, we're not talking about a znus case, ella b'mima enes. So we're talking about a Ketani Yisoma that was married off by her brother or by her mother, and she married a Kohen. She was mama enes b'baila v'yotza menu, and she got remarried without waiting the 3-month period. and she gives birth to a son. We don't know if he's the son of the first one or the son of the second one. Therefore, it's possible, and we can understand very well, Shneim Onenim Olav, when he dies, both are on Onen, they're enjoined from Tumas Mes. As long as they're alive. So therefore, Eina Mitame L'Shneim B'Misasa Misafik Jemezeh Eino Of. So the Gemara says, how can you interpret this referring to Mima Enes? Mima Enes Mika Yolda. We're talking about a case where she had a child. And if she's Mima Enes, she's a Ketana. But Tony Rabbebi Kame Rav Nachman Sholosh Noshim Chamchus Mo Ketana Muber Semenika Ketana Shemetis Aber V'Tomos Meuberes Shemetis Aber Pam Shnia. Tasa Uber Sandal. So it's dangerous for a pregnant woman to have a relationship because she might conceive from that relationship, and that would threaten the life of the Uber. So again, Ketana Shemetis Aber V'Tomos Muberet Shemetasa Ubra Sandal. Meinika. What about a woman who's nursing? She'll get pregnant and she will not be able to nurse her child, the first child. The Yomas, and he'll die. Ezoi Ketana. Why do we say that she's Ru'ulis Aber and she could die, and therefore she's allowed to use a moch? Mibasa Chasrei Shonav Yom Echad Abash Temesrei Shonav Yom Echad. For that year of her life between 11 and 12. If she's less than 11 years old, or Yasar Akan, or she's 12 and a day, Mishameshes Kedarka Veoleches. You could have intimacy Kedarka, meaning without a moch. Because less than 11, she's not going to get pregnant. And more than 12, she's not going to die. Divrei Rabbi Meir, whether she's less than 11 or more than 12, Mishameshes Kedarka Voleches. I'm sorry, whether she's less than 11 or more than 11 is Mishameshes Kedarka, she doesn't use a mo. Shamayim will have compassion on, she won't get pregnant. The pasuk, I think, in Mishlei, let me just double check that. No, my mistake. Pasuk in Tehillim. In any event, we see clearly that a Ketana cannot give birth and survive it. And therefore, it's impossible to interpret our Mishnah in a case of a Ma'enes with a suffix regarding the status of her son, whether he's Ben a Rishon or Ben a Sheni, because he certainly can't be a Ben a Rishon, because Miyun is only Shaykh in a Ketana, and a Ketana is any Yoledis. And the Gemara answers, let's say the first husband was Makadish al Tanai, the Tanai was not fulfilled, therefore Memela the Kedushin Abitelim, so she goes out of this marriage even without a get, and then within 3 months that she left this marriage, she got married to someone else and she had a son. And therefore, Eino Mitame, Ve'e Mitamim, because Kevachu Roa b'Misaso and Kayom b'Misaso Hemodinimola. And this din of Kedushay Tos, which are Batel, if there was no Kiyam Tanai, and she goes out without a get, is Kid Rabbi Yehuda Meshmua. The Omer Rabbi Yehuda Meshmua Mishum Rabbi Yishmael. It says in the pasuk regarding an Ashes each, after Stira, Vehilo Nitfasa. She was not raped. Or rather, it was Bia Baraton. is asura, then she's asura about hanit fasa. The implication is that if she was raped, then muteris labayla, she's allowed to resume her marriage with her husband. So the lashon hapasuk is vehi lo nitfasa, and that means dafka her kiddushin are kiddushin gemurin, and therefore she's asura labayla in zinsa. I mean, the whole parsha is talking about stira, which generates an isur of a wife on her husband. And she's asura labayla if she was mizana without onus. Even though she wasn't an onus, she was zinsa tachta beratzon muteres. Eza zu shekidusheh kiddushay tos. The Tanai of the Kedusha was not fulfilled. Shafil b'no murkav lo al seifa mima enes v'oleches lo. So she doesn't need to get from her husband. She's not considered his wife. And even if she was zinsa tachta b'ratzon, she's like a pluyach zinsa, and she's mutereslo. All this is because it was Kedushay Tos. That's the statement here of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So Yis Hashem, at some point tomorrow, we'll do Daf Kuf Aleph to finish up this parak and begin the parak of Mitzvahs Chalitza Be'ezer Hashem. And then Thursday we go back to our regular schedule, Be'ezer Hashem. Okay then? Wishing you a great day.
Perfect. Thank you.